Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Warcraft news. It's going to be a pretty sweet one. We've got a big old chunk of lore. We've got part of the game's new leveling system as well, the cancellation of Blizzcon, so a bunch of analysis to do there, and a whole bunch more. And hell, it even seems that within 2 weeks, I think 2 weeks, we're going to have a major announcement from the WoW team's top brass, which is also pretty darn exciting. Things actually do seem to be heating up. Then, as a final note, this is the last video before this month ticks over, so if you are interested in this month's Patreon rewards, then I suppose, yeah, now is the time. We've got the Tiefling art pack. Tieflings, by the way, are the original fantasy race that the Draenei of WoW are based off, as well as the Paladin pin, still a pre-order, of course. Production is, it is happening. It's almost caught up from the virus, here's the Shaman as an example, but yeah, it's not quite caught up yet. And then, of course, the key art from a game project that our studio worked on early this month, and I guess, yeah, stick around to the end of this video if you want to hear a bit more about that, and also some kind of cool AI stuff. Anyway, that's what's up. Thanks, everyone, and with that, let's just get straight into the news. Well, a saga over 2 years in the making is finally reaching its conclusion. High Elves, you can have them now. Everyone can have them. The Alliance can have them. The Horde can have them. Sort of. Now, this whole thing has been a very contentious issue at many classic WoW fans. You know, they wanted the classic High Elves, right? Not the newfangled expansion lore tie-in Void Elves or anything like that. Especially because they looked at Illyria and were like, well, she's not voidy all the time. Why can she not just be a High Elf? Or we, I suppose. Now, Blizzard stuck to their guns for ages in this one, from Ian's controversial initial Q&A on the topic, which I think we all remember back in the day, to a recent interview where they said that the data mine blue eye options that WoW had found were for NPCs only. Well, nope. Turns out they're actually now for everybody, and this is via an official Blizzard blog. So, High Elves, they're not a new allied race, but you can customize your Blood or Void Elf to match the look of a High Elf, right? So Void Elves can change their skin color to be that of a regular non-Void Elf, and they can also change their eye color to be that blue color. So yeah, do that, and there you go. You're an Alliance High Elf, and this even applies to the underwear. So yeah, it'll swap you out of your voidy underwear into regular Blood Elf underwear. How exciting. As for the Blood Elves, well, they can just, do the blue eyes, and that's pretty much them good to go. There we go. The drama's over, I suppose. Now, if Blizz wanted a victory lap here, then what I think they should do is maybe try to make a classic High Elf armor set that both of those elven races could unlock. I think the community would really appreciate that. Now, funnily enough, that's actually not all for the elf customization, because a while back, Blood Elf options were data mined that are honestly kind of incredible. You can now wear body jewelry. I mean, you're not going to see it when you've got armor on, but hey, it's an excuse not to wear armor. Pretty cool, I guess. But yeah, just more jewelry options and stuff like that. And it looks really cool. Now, sometime we've got to, just go and do a proper dive into all the new customization options for Shadowlands. But I'll say this much so far. Blizzard are doing an incredible job on stuff that only matters to the individual, right? That's like what I kind of love to see there. There's so much more room for player expression here with these customization options. And, aside from that, they don't really matter, but they really matter to people. And that's what's nice here. Blizzard are doing a great job with them, and I just can't wait to see how far they actually go. And then on that, I suppose there is a bit of data mining that I picked up on from Wowhead today. Yeah, it seems that druids might be able to select what forms, like tints for their forms. Now, this is not confirmed yet in the actual client, but it seems like you'll be able to change up the tints of your bear and cat forms. It seems super whip, but then Wowhead then actually put together, sort of put 2 and 2 together, and they found a bunch of druid form-like tattoos for the, just for your regular character, and suggested that could maybe be another customization option. And certainly, if they do that, that would be really cool. Overall then, so far so good. We certainly will have our work cut out for us when we go to do like a big polished preview video to get you just all of that stuff in a really easy digestible format. But to suffice to say, Blizzard are doing an incredible job, and it's really nice to see. All right, let's change gears and do some lore. So, Orbos has appeared on Alpha. Now, it's going to be our next capital city, of course. It essentially is analogous to Legion's Dalaran, with the Covenant Sanctums being, like the class order halls, right, in terms of, utility and what you can do. Now, much of the usual Blizzard stuff applies here, right? It's a place done by the Blizzard art team, so it's very well executed. It's pretty gorgeous. Now, it is still quite bare, right? And it's in its alpha state, much like, say, the original alpha Parallax was, so nothing to worry about there. What I found more interesting, though, is the darkness sort of beneath it. Now, we've done a whole bunch of videos speculating about the darker side of the Shadowlands and the Titan involvement, including that recent one we only just put up, you should really watch, I think it was a great one, and the role of the Arbiter, right? And sometimes we get flack for reaching into some of that stuff, but I think this is just yet more info that supports it. So, yeah, I mean, basically, the more we see of Orbos and the more NPC text we see, the more it all points towards things being rather dark. So we've got these attendants, right? Now, these are guys in there who Blizzard describe as being created to tend to the city and ensure the Arbiter carries out her duties without interruption. And even that's got me thinking, who created them, right? Because whoever that is, you know, it's presumably the person who created the Arbiter, because they also created these guys, you know, to actually function with her, to sort of keep her going. So there's that. And then you've got, like, the way the Blizzard say the attendants are there to ensure the Arbiter, like, carries out her duties. You know, it's like having you know, a supervisor really just sort of, you know, barreling down, ensuring you do your thing. So it kind of makes me wonder, is the Arbiter actually the prime prisoner of Orbos? Is that the case? You know, is she just a slave to some process, some machine set up long ago? Now, going back to the attendants themselves, well, they follow the purpose, right? It's kind of like they're, you know, they're just order, the thing that they do, right? They're, I guess, you know, sort of religion, their, well, purpose. Now, they go into 3 schools. There's the military people, the caretakers, and the scholars, and one of the scholars ends up being the Arbiter's speaker. And that actually means that the Arbiter doesn't speak for herself, right? You know, so she's got her every need attended to by these guys. They're there to ensure that, like, she carries out her duties, and then she can't even speak for herself. That is very suspicious. The whole thing is suspicious. And then when we move past them, we've got the brokers. They're also suspicious, right? It says they are native to an unnamed realm of the Shadowlands, and they have an innate affinity for anima. I mean, my first read of that is, does that mean that they are to the Shadowlands as demons are to the Twisting Nether, right? And, I mean, what does that mean about the fundamental nature of, you know, the infinite realms of death that the Shadowlands are, that maybe the realms that we see were sort of formed out of, maybe like the Emerald Dream being made out of, you know, something else, something more fundamental. It just gets you thinking, like, what is actually going on there? What sort of things are we going to see revealed? And then for those brokers, like, they're essentially these, like, wheeler dealers, right? Deal makers, you know, they're all, I mean, what is having a functioning anima market? Like, what does that mean for the Shadowlands? How's it useful, right? I mean, the attendants, they would get rid of these brokers if they weren't welcome. So what's going on here? Did the creator of the attendants and the Arbiter strike up a bargain with the native beings of the Shadowlands? And maybe that's why they profit off this massive soul funnel as well at the middle? I mean, yeah, we've got this big soul funnel where the souls are hurtling towards the Maw instead of, like, you know, through the Arbiter, because the Arbiter's dormant. The attendants don't know why this is happening. They're frantically trying to solve this problem. And I mean, yeah, even that, the Arbiter being described as being dormant. That's interesting. Is that dormancy literally what the machine of death being broken is, that the Arbiters kind of just went dark? And then if so, is the Arbiter just some sort of sentient machine or, you know, person bound to this eternal process? I mean, the whole ideology of the attendants is called the purpose, and, you know, it's also said that some of them are now even wondering if the purpose is true. So is the purpose their religion, right? Their orthodoxy, the thing that they've got to follow? And if it is, then who set it up, and why? Did they also make the Arbiter? You see what I mean? Suffice to say, this stuff all ties into our upcoming Azeroth as a Prison video. That'll be very fun to do. And there's a lot to unpack here, right? Shadowlands sure is full of mystery, and I'm fairly sure we're going to get some pretty major reveals. But let's move from these lore reveals to, well, a more literal reveal. So Blizzard announced on their news blog that there is going to be a Shadowlands reveal event, or like some sort of big event, on June 9th. Now, it seems to be major, given that it's Ian Hazzikostas and Jonathan Haidt, who are, I guess, 2 of the most high-up figures for WoW. Now, as to what it could be, I've got literally zero clue. Back in a similar time frame in 2018, I attended a similarly timed media event that ended up being like a presentation from Ian and an announcement of the BFA release date. Now, that was in May for an expansion that launched in August. So a June announcement of a Q4 release date, that could work. It might be a bit early, but hey, it could work. So there's that. And I mean, I've just got to wonder, like, what other stuff will they talk about? Will they cover the pre-patch, anything like that? I mean, yeah, so something's going on there. We don't know what it is. Certainly, it seems like it could be a major thing, though, so definitely something to pay attention to. I imagine we'll have some pretty major news. But with that said, let's just round it off with a few more stories. So first we got something pretty cool from the alpha, the Chromie time system. Here's the UI. Now this is basically what players are going to see when they're about to head off on their level 10 through 50 journey. And as you can see here, the idea is that each expansion will just deal with the entire 10 through 50 leveling bracket. Now the system gives you a bit of a background on the story that you're going to head off on, and then, yeah, Chromie will just send you on your way with the appropriate breadcrumb quest. And look, this is not a complex thing, right, or a big new system. It is basically just some smart narrative lampshading, but it is actually a really good thing for Blizzard to do. And it's probably the most elegant solution that they could come up with to deal with the wacky time travel situation that exists in their leveling, mostly down to the Cataclysm expansion. As, you know, moving from vanilla TBC Wrath to MOP, that would be like a single uninterrupted timeline, but with the Cata revamp, it messed up the timeline a bit. So I think this system's really good, and I think what's nice is it will encourage players to experience that content in a more cohesive manner, and also it'll tease more gameplay, because a new player on their second character, they'll see this and they'll have this big feeling of possibilities, right? Of, you know, all the different places they can go. And really it means they could level from 10 to 50 7 times in different, you know, just in a totally different expansion. And I think that's a very good look for the game. And certainly it will encourage leveling a bit more with it, you know, what it seems like we're going to be getting with, like, the speed and the flow of the sort of new level, like, I guess, rescaling of everything. So there you go. Not a major thing, but I think it is just really good for the game. Then next up, we've got the cancellation of BlizzCon, so that's a pretty major thing, and here is our full analysis from our news story that we did earlier on this week.
BlizzCon 2020 has been cancelled. This, of course, does make complete sense, right? Like, why? Well, there are two reasons. Best case scenario, we'll be in a far better state by November globally, but we still won't be able to cram 20,000 plus people into one sweaty convention center for, yeah, very clear reasons. Now, the second scenario is that, yeah, we end up dealing with a second wave, but the point is that either way, the level of uncertainty, I mean, that is obviously to the point where putting in the massive expense of putting the con on just wouldn't really make that much sense. Now, this is all expected, but I've got to be real with you. What I did not expect is that there will not be a digital replacement until early next year. And this does throw a little bit of a spanner in the works, because BlizzCon, well, that's where Blizzard do almost all of their big announcements. And that actually means we do have a fair bit of analysis to do in this video. So Diablo 4 is clearly their furthest away game in terms of release date. Overwatch 2 somehow is still decently far away, with Jeff saying last year that we'll still be talking about it at the next BlizzCon, indicating, you know, like what, a very late November or December 2020 release date at the earliest, and probably 2021, you know, for an actual release. So my expectation is still Overwatch 2 2021, with World of Warcraft Shadowlands being Blizzard's main release this year. I think we would then be expecting WoW's 10th expansion in 2022. Then Diablo 4 could also release in 2022, or it could be 2023. I think either is quite possible there. Now, really, I think Blizzard's lack of an immediate digital replacement that's happening around the same time as BlizzCon, that does suggest to me that there won't be any big announcements. I mean, if they had planned a massive announcement, then I would have, you know, imagined that they would move heaven and earth to do their own digital event. Now, they do say that there are challenges in doing a digital event and all of that stuff, but looking at the rest of the industry, we know that one can be put on, right? And that, you know, from now to November is easily enough time to actually get something like that going. So it seems to me that yes, it would be hard to do, but also they maybe didn't see the need to do it right the hell now. And that does make me think that this would have been a smaller BlizzCon anyway if it was to happen in November, and that with a delay, you know, not causing them to lose out on that much, it would just make more sense to do a digital event later on, but to actually do it well. It could then also be that if a few of their teams for the bigger announcements are just a little bit held back because of all the stuff that's going on, that yeah, a little bit more breathing room, a few months more breathing room would actually be quite nice if they still wanted to hit their targets for a major announcement, but of course just, you know, in Q1 of 2021 rather than in Q4 of 2020.
Okay, so this is a pretty darn cool thing that ties into something ages ago where I remember trying to work out how I could use After Effects to get a depth map of a drone shot from World of Warcraft that I like take with a camera tool. Now, it actually could be done at the time, but the software was super expensive, and, it was like price on, like it didn't have like public pricing. It was the sort of thing you gotta hit them up and then get a price, which usually means expensive as hell. But really the thing there is that having that be possible would allow you to take in-game shots and then actually get a depth map and then use that for, object placement, VFX, just a whole bunch of stuff. So we're not quite there yet, but this 3D Parallax stuff appeared last week, and really cool stuff. It's really just taking that tool and then applying it to World of Warcraft, which is what the OP did. But of course, we've then taken that. Here's some tests that we've been doing, but our plan is to use this to get some nice B-roll for both of our channels. Now, of course, credit to the guy who actually went and applied this tool to WoW and got the headlines, which is how we noticed it. But yeah, what this actually does, right, is it analyzes the image to create a depth map. Now, here's actually what one of the depth maps looks like. Now, it can then sort of use, I guess what you'd say is like a content-aware fill for like behind objects, which allows for the wacky 3D camera movements. And to be honest, most of the circles and swings don't work that well, but the dolly zoom does work a lot better. Now, that is basically because sideways translation is a lot harder to get looking well for a system like this. Now, prior to this, right, what you'd have to do is, get an image, take it into Photoshop, slice it up into layers, then put all of those layers into After Effects, then position them all in 3D space, then get a camera, and then set up all of that stuff. Well, this, you just throw the files in, hop into the command line, hit go, and it goes, right? Far more production friendly. And that said, having depth maps for these images, that is very interesting, actually. It could be quite useful for doing some VFX work. But yeah, TLDR, tech is cool. It's a story that emerged in the WoW sphere recently, and I thought I'd just show it to you because it's kind of cool. Like when things like this appear and you're maybe in a position like us or, just doing content creation, you can then use that stuff, right, to try to enhance your work. So it's really cool and just, man, tools development, tech stuff. I love it. So that's it for the news, but I probably should tell you a little bit more about the story of this piece that we're doing on Patreon. So yeah, because I think a few were asking. So this is from our studio, right? And in line basically with us trying to work out a longer term vision and be more than, being more than just one game, right? We ended up doing a few weeks of ideation while the core art team was still doing asset creation for Pale Beyond, which, is sort of our big game, big project that we're working on. Now, we love sound design in games, and we were trying to think of how we could deeply integrate musicality with narrative flow and with gameplay, and really having the narrative stuff being a part of the gameplay as well. So we were kind of doing stuff that's a bit more, I suppose, orchestral, right? So this is why you're getting this, which is, in my head, it's like there's a bit of Hobbit, sort of classic fantasy art, but also brutal legend, right? If you actually look closely at what the landscapes are actually made out of in this. And really, like, I don't want to get into like super details or anything, but I think the point would be that being able to tackle something like this, in a small scale indie way, being a bit more experimental could lead to some really cool stuff. And then also, I love the idea of building out like other worlds, right? Based on other genres. I mean, brutal legend gives you a pretty good idea of like what a heavy metal world could look like, but I'd love to know what would like a jazz world or, different ones like sort of look like and feel like. Now, to set expectations here, if we do pick up this prototype, it's not going to be something you'll see for ages, right? I think this is just to give you a bit of a glimpse into a thing that we thought was pretty cool. And we basically thought, well, we could actually do something with this instead of just having this art live in our Dropbox forever. So yeah, that's why we sort of, polished it up, printed it up, and can get it in your hands. But yeah, at some stage I'll go into a little bit more detail about some of those experiments. Yeah, I think basically, right, like, running the full YouTube production team and then the game development studio, I mean, we're 12 full-time staff, so I would have loved to been able to go into more like specifics on plans for the game development side of things. But to be honest with you, there's a bunch of uncertainty, some scuffed stuff with the schedule, like when, like COVID lockdown happened. It didn't actually hold us back that much really, but it's just organizational stuff, and actually plotting out longer term plans is just sort of tricky these days, I suppose. But yeah, soon enough we should be having more stuff to talk about. Yeah, it's kind of weird. I'm totally aware that I talk about this stuff, and it's like, from my perspective, yeah, there's a bunch of stuff going on, right? Like there's 5 or 6 people working at this stuff, but to you guys, it's like, well, we've not seen anything. You could just be lying. And I'm definitely aware of, I'm aware of like, there'll be a time pretty soon, right, where we've actually got to start showing the goods, so to speak. So yes, we do plan to show you the goods. Anyway, that's a little bit of the backstory of this guy. Of course, there's all the other stuff on the Patreon, this month. Paladin pins. they are in production. They have been in production for a few weeks prior to actually talking about them. So they should be arriving with us next month. And then, Druid is, here's a little bit of a spoiler, Druid is next month. Druid entered production the same time that Paladin did. So the hope is that the Druid and the Paladin pins will arrive at the same time, which should speed things up there. And then the next bunch of them, we are also working on getting in production now. So an interesting situation with, just the virus stuff. Kind of just, if you had plans, oh boy. Certainly did mess them up. But anyway, that's what's up there. Very interested to see what you think about the WoW news. I mean, yeah, High Elves finally happened. There's a lot of people who are going to be extremely happy about that because they were pissed off about it for years, and finally Blizzard listened. I think, it's interesting because, like, Blizzard, they denied the High Elf situation a few weeks ago. So I've got to imagine that people got hope whenever the Blue Eyes were data mined. And then that hope was crushed, and then they felt really bad. And then maybe Blizzard just kind of thought, we made these things anyway, and whenever we announced that these would not be things that players could use, look how many people we made sad. Maybe we could just do it. And I mean, yeah. Very glad they did. Anyway, that's it for me. Let me know what you thought about these stories. And I guess, right, there's this big event apparently on the 9th of June. So let me know in the comments. What do you think it's going to be? Is it going to be like an unveiling of the pre-patch event? Unveiling of the collector's edition? A release date? I don't know, some cinematic or trailer thing? I'd be pretty interested to hear. So yeah, let me know what you think. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.